You know what still makes my blood boil? 10 years ago, my stepbrother convinced my parents to raid my college fund, $85,000, because he was destined for Broadway. They looked me in the eye and said, "It's an investment in family." He burned through it in less than a year, left me with community college in debt, and never once apologized. Now he's back, broke, standing at my door with my parents behind him, begging me to help. And I'll never forget what I did next. Growing up, I wasn't the golden child. I wasn't even close. That role belonged to my stepbrother, Tyler. From the moment my mom remarried, it was like the universe shifted. Tyler was the gifted one, the talent, the one everyone said was destined for greatness. I was just steady, quiet, responsible, the kind of kid who kept his grades up and stayed out of trouble. But in my family, responsible was invisible. I still remember being 15 and overhearing my mom gush to my stepdad about Tyler's voice. "He has the soul of an artist," she said, as if that excused the fact that he skipped half his classes and treated me like a nuisance. Meanwhile, I was mowing lawns to save for textbooks and doing homework at the kitchen table while he blasted show tunes upstairs. See, my biological dad died when I was young, and he'd left me something important, a college fund. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. He worked 2 jobs for years to make sure that when the time came, I could go to school without drowning in debt. That fund was my safety net, my chance to build a future. It was the one thing in my life that felt untouchable, protected, or at least I thought it was. My stepdad had full financial control once he married my mom. I didn't question it at first. Why would I? They were the adults, right? They were supposed to guard my future. But slowly, I noticed things. My stepdad making comments like, "Money should be used to help the family, not sit in an account," or my mom sighing, "Tyler just needs one big opportunity." I didn't see the red flags then. I wanted to believe they would never cross that line. Tyler, of course, loved to play the starving artist. He'd belt out Broadway numbers at family gatherings, making a spectacle of himself. My relatives would clap politely while I sat in the corner, wondering how someone so careless could be treated like royalty. Every birthday, every holiday, every family dinner turned into a stage for his dream. And the dream had a price tag. He started auditioning in New York, talking about moving there, needing seed money for headshots, coaches, rent. At first, I thought my parents would laugh it off. Instead, they leaned in. They whispered about sacrifices. They started dropping hints like, "We all have to support each other, and don't you want to see your brother succeed?" That was the environment I grew up in, where my steady, careful future was treated as expendable, and his reckless fantasy was considered destiny. Back then, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to be the bitter kid, the jealous one. But in hindsight, maybe staying quiet was the biggest mistake I ever made. Because one day, the words I dreaded finally came out of my mother's mouth. "We've decided Tyler deserves a real chance. And you'll have more opportunities later. You'll understand when you're older." I didn't understand then, but I do now. It happened on a rainy Thursday afternoon, the kind where everything feels damp and heavy, even inside the house. I'd just gotten home from school, backpack soaked, sneakers squeaking across the linoleum. My plan was simple: grab a snack, finish my calculus homework, maybe sneak in a video game if I was lucky. But instead, I found my mom and stepdad at the kitchen table, paperwork spread out between them. Tyler was there too, perched like a king with a smug grin, humming some tune under his breath. He stopped the moment he saw me, like I'd just walked into a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. "Sit down, honey," my mom said. Too sweet, too rehearsed. I dropped my bag by the chair and sat. My stomach tightened. My stepdad cleared his throat. "So, we've been thinking. Tyler has been given an incredible opportunity, an audition for a Broadway workshop." He paused, letting the words hang in the air like a miracle. Tyler's grin widened. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime shot," he added, his voice dripping with self-importance. I didn't say anything. I just waited. My mom reached for my hand, which was unusual. "Sweetheart, you know your father, your real father. He always wanted the best for you. But we believe the best way to honor his sacrifice is to share it." Share it. The words hit me like a punch. They kept talking about investing in family, about seizing opportunities, about not holding back just because money is sitting in an account. Each phrase felt like they were chiseling away at my future with a smile. Finally, I interrupted. "Wait, Are you saying my college fund? Silence. Just rain tapping against the windows. My stepdad didn't flinch. It's not just yours. It's family money. We've decided Tyler should use it for his career launch. I felt my throat close. My chest burned. That's not what Dad left it for. Tyler rolled his eyes. Oh, come on. You'll get scholarships. You're, like, book smart. You don't need the money. This could change everything for me. The arrogance in his voice made me want to flip the table. But my mom squeezed my hand harder. We're not taking it all. Just enough to give him a real chance. I wanted to scream, to argue, to tell them this was theft. But I was 17, outnumbered, and blindsided. Instead, I stared at the papers spread out on the table. Bank forms. Withdrawal slips. The signatures already filled in. It was done. I sat there, frozen, while Tyler hummed that same smug Broadway tune again. My mom avoided my eyes. My stepdad leaned back in his chair like a man who had solved a great problem. That was the night my safety net disappeared. My father's legacy vanished with a few pen strokes. And the worst part? I didn't fight it. Not then. But that was just the beginning. The first few weeks after that kitchen table ambush, I tried to convince myself maybe it wasn't so bad. They said it was only part of the money, right? Maybe a small withdrawal. Maybe I'd still have enough to get by. I clung to that hope the way a drowning man clings to driftwood. But then little things started to add up. I overheard phone calls at night. My mom whispering about covering rent in New York or sending more this month than planned. I'd catch Tyler swaggering around the house bragging about his private vocal coach, holding receipts for outfits that looked more like costumes than clothes. One evening, I came home from work at the grocery store and found a thick envelope on the counter addressed to Tyler. He wasn't home yet, so curiosity got the better of me. I didn't open it, but I held it up to the light. Inside was a cashier's check. 5 figures, easily. My chest sank. When Tyler walked in and saw me holding it, he snatched it away with a smirk. What? Jealous? Where did that come from? I demanded. He didn't even blink. Your college fund, genius. Where else? He stuffed the envelope into his backpack like it was pocket change. I stood there, speechless. I wanted to run to my mom, to scream, to demand answers. But deep down, I already knew what she'd say. This is for the family. You'll understand later. I told myself maybe they were still leaving me something. Maybe my stepdad had been exaggerating when he called it family money. I mean, surely they wouldn't empty it completely, right? Then came the moment that erased every shred of doubt. I was filling out financial aid forms at the school library, planning ahead for college applications. The form asked me to list savings and assets. I logged into the account, the one I hadn't checked since middle school because I trusted it was safe. The balance, $437.82. My hands trembled on the keyboard. I refreshed the page 3 times, thinking it had to be a glitch. But the number stayed the same. My dad's years of double shifts, the safety he had carved out for me with sweat and exhaustion, gone. Every penny but a few $100, already siphoned into Tyler's dream. I remember staring at that screen until my eyes blurred. Part of me wanted to cry. Part of me wanted to punch something. And a small, twisted part of me felt stupid for not checking sooner. That night, I asked my mom about it. My voice shook, but I forced the words out. The account is empty. There's nothing left. She froze for a second before recovering with that same rehearsed softness. Honey, you'll get scholarships. You're strong. Tyler just needed it more right now. I didn't argue. I just walked upstairs, my ears buzzing with white noise. But in that moment, something inside me cracked. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was theft, plain and simple. And I hadn't even begun to see how much worse it would get. By the time summer rolled around, denial wasn't an option anymore. I had seen the empty account, the checks, the smug look on Tyler's face every time he left for another lesson. But still, some pathetic part of me hoped I'd miscalculated. That maybe there was a second account. Maybe Mom had set aside a portion for me. I clung to that fantasy like a lifeline, because the alternative, that everything my dad worked for was gone, was too brutal to accept. The confirmation came on a sweltering July afternoon. Tyler was packing for New York, lugging a suitcase down the hall, humming like he was the star of his own personal musical. My mom hovered around him like a stagehand, checking lists, slipping envelopes of cash into his pocket. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching the circus. So when exactly am I supposed to go to college? I asked. My tone was sharper than I intended, but my patience was running on fumes. My stepdad looked up from the paperwork he was signing. You'll figure it out. Kids take loans. You're smart. You'll get a scholarship. My jaw tightened. And if I don't? He didn't even look at me. Then you'll work. Like everyone else. Tyler snorted. God, you sound so bitter. You're acting like this money was ever really yours. It's just numbers in a bank. I'm actually doing something with it. That's when my mom chimed in, her voice soft, almost pleading. Sweetheart, you'll understand when you're older. Tyler has a gift. He just needs a chance. You're strong. You'll land on your feet. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like they'd rehearsed it, each line a script meant to gaslight me into silence. Dad didn't work himself to death, so Tyler could sing show tunes in Manhattan. I snapped. My voice cracked, and suddenly the room went silent. Tyler stopped humming. My mom's face flushed, and my stepdad's eyes hardened. He left that money for me. I whispered. For my education. My stepdad slammed his pen down. Enough. We're not rehashing this. The decision is made. You'll thank us someday when you see Tyler on stage. And just like that, the conversation was over, for them. For me, it was just beginning. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. My chest felt tight, my mind replaying every word. So I did what I hadn't dared before. I dug through my stepdad's office. His filing cabinet was locked, but the top drawer wasn't. Inside, I found bank statements, pages of withdrawals, transfers, checks made out directly to Tyler. The total was sickening. $85,237.46. Every cent, gone. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. $85,000. My father's blood and sweat, the one gift he left me to secure a future, burned through like Monopoly money. Rent checks, headshots, studio time, audition expenses. There was even a bill for a 3-week acting retreat in the Catskills that cost more than my entire year's tuition at community college. I sat there in the dark, papers spread across the desk, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. My whole body felt hot, then cold. I wanted to scream, to tear the pages apart, to march upstairs and throw them in Tyler's face. But instead, I just sat frozen, all rising in my throat. That was the moment it sank in. There was no misunderstanding, no exaggeration, no just a portion. They had taken everything, and they hadn't even bothered to hide it. When I finally staggered back to my room, my reflection in the mirror startled me. My face was pale, my eyes red-rimmed, my hands still trembling. I barely recognized myself. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, replaying the numbers in my head. 85,000. It echoed like a curse. And with every repetition, something inside me hardened. I wasn't just betrayed. I was robbed. And the people who were supposed to protect me had held the door open for the thief. But I wasn't ready for what I was about to discover next. After that sleepless night with the bank statement scattered across my bed, I thought I'd hit the bottom. 85 grand gone. What could be worse than that? But I was wrong. The deeper revelation came a few weeks later, when Tyler finally left for New York. I expected things at home to calm down once his ego had a new stage. But instead, the house felt emptier. Not just physically. My mom walked around like she'd just sent her firstborn off to war, while my stepdad bragged to anyone who would listen about investing in talent. One evening, I overheard them on the phone with my grandmother, my dad's mom. She had always been kind to me, slipping me $20 bills on birthdays, reminding me that my father had wanted me to have every opportunity he never did. What I heard that night stopped me cold. Yes, Mom, my stepdad said, his voice low but firm. It's all gone. Every penny. But it was the right decision. He'll make us proud. There was a pause, and then I heard my grandmother's shaky voice through the receiver. That money wasn't yours to give. My mom jumped in, her tone sugar-coated. Oh, he doesn't need it the way Tyler does. You know how smart he is, he'll get by. But Tyler could be a star. I felt sick. It wasn't just that they had stolen from me. They had lied to my father's family, twisted the truth into some noble sacrifice. The next day, I biked to my grandmother's house. She didn't say much when I showed her the statements I'd taken from the filing cabinet. She just stared at the pages, her hands trembling. Finally, she whispered, "Your father would be heartbroken." That broke something inside me. Because for the first time, I realized it wasn't just my future they'd stolen, it was his legacy. They had erased his final gift to me and dressed it up as an investment in someone who couldn't even hold down a part-time job. And then came the detail that really twisted the knife. My grandmother sighed and said, "You know, when your father was sick, he told me he was putting money aside so you wouldn't have to rely on anyone else. He worried about exactly this. He made me promise to watch over it." I never imagined. She trailed off, shaking her head. I sat there numb. My father had predicted this. He knew. And somehow, I'd still been powerless to stop it. That night, I confronted my mom again. "Why didn't you tell me the account was empty before I found out on my own?" She avoided my eyes, fussing with the dishes. "We didn't want to burden you. We thought you'd understand later." "Understand what?" I snapped. "That my life doesn't matter as much as Tyler's dream? That dad's sacrifice meant nothing." She finally turned, her eyes wet but hard. "You don't get it. Families make sacrifices. Tyler is special. Special." That word echoed in my head like poison. In that moment, I understood the full scope. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about a family that had chosen a golden child, and it wasn't me. And realizing that hurt worse than losing the $85,000. For weeks, I walked around in a fog. I went to school, punched in at my grocery job, smiled when teachers asked about college applications. But inside, I was crumbling. Every time I passed the library bulletin board filled with scholarship flyers, I felt like an imposter. Everyone else was preparing for their future. Mine had been stolen before I even got to the starting line. At night, I lay awake replaying scenarios in my head. One version had me storming into Tyler's apartment in New York, demanding every cent back. Another had me cutting ties with my mom completely, letting her live with the consequences of choosing him over me. And then there were darker fantasies, calling the bank, the authorities, exposing what they'd done. After all, wasn't it fraud? But each thought ended the same way: exhaustion. Because deep down, I knew none of those things would bring the money back. Even if Tyler handed me every dollar tomorrow, it wouldn't erase the years of planning I'd lost. It wouldn't erase the humiliation of being told I was less worthy, less special. So I kept my mouth shut. I bottled it up. I told myself maybe the only way to win was to succeed without their help. Maybe proving them wrong would sting worse than any confrontation. Still, the anger ate at me. I'd sit in my car after late shifts, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, whispering to myself, "I'll make it on my own. I don't need them. I don't need him." But no matter how many times I said it, the hole inside me remained. Then one sleepless night, staring at the ceiling, I realized something. Silence wasn't strength. It was surrender. And I wasn't ready to surrender. I spent the next few weeks quietly planning. Nothing dramatic, nothing reckless. Just setting boundaries, pulling back, saving everything I could, building a wall in my mind between myself and the family who had betrayed me. And one day, I knew exactly what I had to do. The first real step I took wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, almost invisible. But for me, it felt like cutting an umbilical cord I'd been chained to for years. I stopped asking my mom for advice, stopped updating her on applications or grades. When she'd press me about which colleges I was considering, I'd just shrug and say, "Community college for now." I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes, but I didn't feed it. I let the silence do the work. At the same time, I doubled down on work. I picked up extra shifts at the grocery store, took tutoring gigs on the side. Every dollar I earned, I stashed in a new account under only my name. No cosigners, no access for anyone else. For the first time, I felt a small spark of control. Tyler would call sometimes from New York, bragging about his additions, the connections he was making. His tone was dripping with superiority, like he'd already left us behind. I learned to keep the phone on speaker, let his words wash over me while I focused on folding laundry or cleaning dishes. Eventually, I stopped picking up altogether. My stepdad noticed the distance. One evening, he cornered me in the garage while I was hauling groceries from the car. "You're holding a grudge," he said flatly. "That's not healthy. Family sacrifices for each other." I stared at him, bags cutting into my hands. Funny, I don't remember anyone sacrificing for me. His jaw tightened, but he didn't push further. Maybe because, for once, he saw I wasn't going to bend. The real turning point, though, came when my grandmother slipped me an envelope. It wasn't much, just a few $100s, but the way she looked at me when she pressed it into my hand meant more than the cash itself. "This is yours," she whispered. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." That small act of defiance lit something inside me. For years, I'd been waiting for someone to validate my anger. And in that moment, she did. So I kept going. I enrolled in community college, juggled jobs, built my own path brick by brick. Every time I wanted to quit, I thought about the smirk on Tyler's face when he bragged about burning through my fund. That image fueled me more than caffeine ever could. And slowly, life started to stabilize. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't drowning either. I had my own little apartment, bills paid on time, classes moving forward. For the first time since my father's death, I felt like I was steering my own ship. One night, lying in bed after a long shift, I actually let myself breathe. Maybe, just maybe, the worst was behind me. But I couldn't have been more wrong. For a while, life felt almost normal. My days were predictable. Classes in the morning, shifts at the store in the afternoon, homework late at night. I kept my head down, paid my bills, saved what I could. There was a strange peace in the monotony, like I'd finally stepped out of the chaos that had defined my teenage years. I stopped hearing much about Tyler. His calls trickled off, his social media posts grew vague. The big Broadway breakthrough never came, but I didn't ask questions. In my mind, he was just another guy chasing a fantasy in a city that chewed people up. Whatever happened, it wasn't my problem anymore. My mom would sometimes drop hints during phone calls, little sighs about how it's harder for Tyler than we thought, or maybe things will turn around soon. I'd nod politely, keep my voice neutral, and change the subject. I thought if I ignored the storm long enough, it would pass me by. Even my stepdad seemed to loosen his grip. He didn't corner me in the garage anymore, didn't preach about family sacrifices. It was as if they'd all accepted that I was carving my own path, and for the first time, the pressure lifted. I let myself believe I was free. I even celebrated small victories, paying off my used car, getting an A on a brutal exam, treating myself to a real dinner instead of instant noodles. They were tiny milestones, but each one felt like a step further from the wreckage Tyler had left behind. I told myself, this is it. This is stability. You've made it out. But peace built on denial never lasts. Because one evening, nearly a decade after my stepbrother had torched my future for his dreams, I heard a knock on my door. When I opened it, there he was, older, thinner, eyes hollow. And standing right behind him were my parents. And the look on their faces told me everything. The calm was over. The knock on my door that night sounded different. Heavy, desperate. Not the kind of knock from a friend or neighbor. When I opened it and saw Tyler with my parents behind him, my stomach dropped. Tyler looked nothing like the star they had once promised he'd become. His hair was thinning, his clothes wrinkled, and the arrogance in his eyes had been replaced with a hollow emptiness. He gave me a weak grin. Hey, little bro, long time. I didn't answer. I just stepped aside, and they walked in like they still owned the place. My mom clutched her purse with white knuckles. My stepdad's jaw was locked, his face drawn tight. I shut the door, bracing myself. It didn't take long. Tyler's hit a rough patch, my mom began, her voice trembling with practiced sympathy. The industry is unforgiving, but he's still talented. He just needs a little help to get back on his feet. I laughed, short and bitter. A little help? Like $85,000 worth of help. Tyler winced, but my stepdad jumped in. That was years ago. You can't keep holding on to bitterness. He's your brother. Family doesn't abandon each other. Something in me snapped. Family already abandoned me when you stole my future and handed it to him. The silence that followed was thick. My mom's lip quivered. Tyler shifted uncomfortably, then finally spoke. Look, I screwed up, okay? I thought I'd make it. I didn't. I wasted it. But I'm trying again. I just need the place to crash. Some money. Something. His voice cracked on that last word. For a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I remembered staring at that empty account. The nights I spent working double shifts while he lived out his fantasy on my dime. No, I said flatly. My mom gasped. You can't mean that. He's your brother. He's not my brother. He's the guy who robbed me, with your blessing. Her eyes filled with tears. You don't understand what it's like, watching your child struggle. We did what we thought was right. I shook my head. No, you did what was easy. You sacrificed the responsible one for the reckless one because you couldn't face telling him no. My stepdad's voice rose. Watch your tone. You're talking to your mother. And you're talking to a man whose future you destroyed. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to hold their gaze. You don't get to come here after 10 years and ask for more. Not money, not shelter, not forgiveness. Tyler's face crumpled. Please, he whispered. I don't have anywhere else. For a second, I saw the boy he used to be, the one who sang off-key in the living room, who soaked up every ounce of attention while I disappeared into the background. Only now he wasn't shining. He was broken. But compassion is not the same as forgetting. I crossed my arms. Then maybe you'll finally learn what it feels like to fall without someone cushioning the landing. The room erupted. My mom sobbed, begging me to reconsider. My stepdad cursed under his breath, muttering about ungrateful children. Tyler just stared at the floor, shame radiating off him like heat. I stood there, letting it all wash over me. Their anger, their disappointment, their attempts to guilt me back into submission. And for the first time in my life, I didn't bend. Finally, I opened the door. You need to leave. All of you. My mom clutched my arm, tears streaming. If you shut this door, you'll regret it. I looked her in the eye. No, I regret not shutting it sooner. They left in silence, the echo of their footsteps fading into the night. I leaned against the door once it closed, my heart racing, my body trembling. But I knew this wasn't over. Because people like them don't accept boundaries. They push. They test. And when you finally say no, they come back harder. And I had no idea just how far they'd go next. The days after I shut that door were some of the hardest I can remember. I thought sending them away would bring peace, maybe even closure. Instead, it brought war. My phone lit up constantly, calls, texts, voicemails. My mom crying, begging me to please, just reconsider. Tyler's messages alternating between pitiful apologies and bitter accusations. My stepdad's voice on voicemail, cold and sharp. You think you're better than us? You'll regret this arrogance. At first, I ignored them, but the silence in my apartment grew heavy. Every buzz of my phone chipped away at my resolve. Lying in bed at night, I stared at the ceiling and wondered if I was cruel. Was I heartless for refusing to help my own family? Work wasn't much of an escape. I'd catch myself zoning out at the register, scanning groceries on autopilot while replaying their words in my head. Customers would hand me cash, and I'd wonder if my father would be proud of the man I was becoming or ashamed. The worst came one Sunday afternoon when I stopped by my grandmother's house. She sat me down at the kitchen table, her frail hands wrapping around mine. They came to see me, she whispered. They told me you've turned cold, that you've lost your compassion. Her words pierced me deeper than any text or voicemail. My grandmother had always been my anchor, the one person who never doubted me. To hear that she was being dragged into the middle of this made my chest ache. Do you believe them? I asked quietly. She studied me for a long moment. No, but I see the toll this is taking. You look tired, child. Worn down. I wanted to deny it, but she was right. I felt hollow, torn between the boy who once craved his family's approval and the man who knew he'd never get it. That night, I broke down. Alone in my apartment, I let the anger and grief finally spill out. I punched a pillow until my arms ached, then collapsed onto the floor, sobbing into my hands. For the first time since my father died, I admitted the truth I'd been avoiding. My family wasn't going to change. No amount of sacrifice or patience would make them see me as worthy. And in that ugly, raw moment, something shifted. I realized I had a choice. I could keep drowning in guilt, letting their voices echo in my head until I caved. Or I could finally end the cycle, once and for all. Wiping my face, I looked at my reflection in the darkened window. My eyes were swollen, but for the first time, they were clear. I whispered it out loud, just to hear it. This ends with me. And that was when I knew exactly what I had to do to end this once and for all. The breaking point came a week later. I had been ignoring the calls, the texts, the guilt trips, but they didn't stop. If anything, they multiplied. And then one evening, after a long double shift, I came home to find them waiting outside my apartment building. Tyler sat slumped on the steps, eyes bloodshot. My mom stood beside him, face streaked with tears, while my stepdad paced like a wolf. The second I saw them, my stomach turned. I almost kept walking. But something in me knew. If I didn't face them now, they'd never stop. I unlocked the door to my building, and they followed me in. No invitation, no hesitation. My apartment was small, barely enough space for one person, but suddenly it felt claustrophobic with the three of them crammed inside. My stepdad spoke first. This has gone on long enough. He needs your help, and you're going to give it. His tone, commanding, entitled, lit a fire in me. For years, I had obeyed, swallowed my anger, played the quiet kid who didn't rock the boat. But not anymore. I looked him dead in the eye. No, I'm not. He bristled. You ungrateful. Ungrateful. I snapped, cutting him off. My voice shook, but not from fear, from years of rage finally finding its outlet. You stole my father's legacy. You robbed me of the future he wanted for me. And you expect me to thank you? To reward you with more? My mom stepped forward, tears glistening. Please, sweetheart, you don't understand. No, Mom. I do understand. I understand perfectly. You picked your golden boy and left me to fend for myself. You watched me struggle and told me to be strong while you poured everything into him. And now you want me to clean up the mess you created. Tyler finally spoke, his voice hoarse. I know I screwed up, but I'm trying. I just need a second chance. I turned to him. You didn't screw up once, Tyler. You screwed up 1,000 times. And every time, someone else paid the price. First Dad's money, then my future. Now you want my life to stop so yours can keep limping along. No. His lips trembled. For a moment, he looked like he might collapse. But I didn't let myself soften. You burned through $85,000 like it was pocket change. You had a decade to make something of it. And what did you do? Nothing. That was your second chance. Your third. Your 10th. This, I gestured around at my tiny apartment, my humble stability. This is what I built with nothing. And you want to drag me back into your failure? Never again. My stepdad's face reddened. You think you're better than us now? Just because you pay your bills on time and live in a shoebox. I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. I don't think I'm better. I just finally know my worth. And I'm done letting you decide it for me. The room went silent. My mom sobbed quietly into her hands. Tyler stared at the floor, broken. My stepdad glared at me like he wanted to tear me apart, but he had no power left. Not anymore. Finally, I walked to the door and opened it. Get out. Nobody moved. I clenched the doorknob tighter. If you don't leave, I'll call the police. And this time, I won't care what the neighbors think. You wanted a stage? Fine. The whole world can see the kind of family you are. That did it. My stepdad cursed under his breath, grabbed my mom's arm, and stormed out. Tyler lingered, his eyes wet, his shoulders sagging. For a brief second, I thought he might apologize, really apologize. But he didn't. He just whispered, "You'll regret this," and followed them into the hall. I shut the door, locked it, leaned against it until my legs gave out. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt like freedom.